From Sigma Woman, this is the Business for Aligned Women podcast. I'm your host, Clara McKay, your aligned business coach and advocate for all things showing up for your vision. This is a no BS space for brave-hearted women who are actually craving change. I'm dedicated to bringing women's visions into reality, equipping women with all they need to build an abundant future, and shutting down all of the ways that you keep yourself small. Here, we're all about a women-centered approach, non-negotiable value alignment, and making bank without compromising your well-being. Each week, you're already one step closer to your most aligned and abundant future. Today, we're going to talk about when you should start coaching, when you should think about seeing a coach, and when it's important for you to be moving out of doing everything DIY, following your own internal guidance. And I'm going to share my experiences in the first couple of years of my business and when I started seeing a coach and what happened and what changed. And I can see that the experience that I had is so similar to that of my clients, especially the ones who really show up and do all the work. It's really saving both of us like over 5 years in what would be a longer term, slower burn business journey into really ramping things up relatively quickly. Before we get into that, if this is your reminder to yourself to think about, oh, I was thinking about looking into coaching, I've been thinking about booking a free call, I literally have a handful, not even 5 places for the rest of 2024. If one of those places is for you, now is the time to start having that conversation and thinking about it with me. Let's talk about my own experience with coaching. And then I want to talk about some of the things that often get in the way of coaching and some of the reasons why every now and then the thing that is in the way of it is the reason why you should do it. We'll see if that makes sense once we get to it. I hired a coach, I think about 1.5 or 2 years-ish into my businesses. We're talking back in like 2019. So it was a while ago now, the first time that I ever worked with a coach. And I continue to work with coaches and strategists and consultants and specialists in different areas ongoing. And the first time I did, I can really clearly see that I had been earning less than like $55,000 a year in my business. And as soon as I took on a coach, that quickly went up to $130,000 a year. So it was an $80,000 jump from hiring a coach. So I feel like for a lot of people, like that's all the information that you really need at this point. And my income has only grown from then. It's never gone backwards. And I honestly can see that I might have stayed in that 60, 50K space for a lot longer if I hadn't had all of the beautiful supportive things that I got from coaching. I want to talk about some of the things that for me really helped and also made that bump up happen quickly. And it was about really the accountability. I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast. Naturally, I'm an incredibly lazy person. Like if I'm not self-disciplined, if I'm not pushing myself or getting intrinsic motivation, I will sit around and read a book and nap all day. I have my moon in Cancer, so I'm very like cozy, cuddly, lounging around person. And I'm very able to talk myself out of doing the things that I set for myself. I'm very good at that. I'm very good at gaslighting myself. I'm very good at self-sabotage. And having someone else in the room that I respected, and I also respected how they perceived me, like let's say it out loud, that is what happens with this. I wanted them to see me in my best light. It meant I showed up every week, and it meant the tasks that she set for me, I did them. And I think I probably did most of them, but I know that if I didn't do one, we would have reverse engineered why that happened and what support I might need in order to do that thing, or look at whether maybe that thing isn't right for me to be doing, which is what I do with my clients all the time. It's not about, did you do this or not? It's about, well, if you didn't do this, let's go into why And was it due to being lazy and avoidant, or is there a deeper reason here that we need to acknowledge and that we need to support and hold space for in order for you to actually start doing it? So the accountability definitely fast-tracked everything, but also strategic decision making. Rather than, I know that a lot of people are like this, and at times I can be like this as well. When you have a decision to make, you go into analysis paralysis and you're making cons and pros lists and you're doing all this stuff and you're like thinking about it, it's like rattling around in your head, it's on a bit of a hamster wheel. Whereas if you have an external party, like a coach, they can clearly see the patterns that will occur with each decision and where you'll go with each decision. They can go, well, that one is going to get you there quicker, or that one's going to feel the most aligned, or that one's going to feel the most supportive. And it shuts down so much wasted time and energy on trying to work out the next best move for yourself. And also, it's like, it takes a bit of that emotional edge and charge out of making those decisions, because you have someone who's an expert helping you to make them rather than relying on your own intuition or your own inner guidance. Of course, I love inner guidance, but sometimes when you're really close to your business, your inner compass is absolutely muddied with all of the emotional stuff that's going on. And another really helpful part of seeing a coach in those first 2 years of my business was that it really got me to focus at one thing at a time until completion, rather than jumping around and having lots of different ideas and like fluffing about a lot, which meant I was always operating on a surface level. And it also, it was really helpful to have someone external to the business call me out on any mental rubbish that I was using to get in my own way. And I can think of one particular coach where even me going to the call and complaining about the same thing every call, she didn't even need to say anything. I could hear myself. And hearing myself say it out loud to someone else every week made me realize that it needed to be addressed. And if I had have just been going on and on about it in my own head, I don't think I would have actually made progress or taken action on that. And also, like, another thing on the strategic decision making part, I can think of a beautiful coach I had recently, who she was like really reiterating the progress that I was making and then reiterating the choices that I had made. And that felt really supportive as well. And sometimes it's these little things that I know I wouldn't, for a long time there, I would come up with ideas for new offers and I'd put them out willy-nilly, and I would have no strategy around when I did that or how I had a marketing campaign for it or what the plan was around it. And having coaches hold me to that new level of professionalism really got me to start doing that. And that's benefited my business. And that's something that I pass on to my clients as well. So letting go of that overthinking and indecisiveness. Now, let's talk about when is the right time for you to actually start coaching? Because I know a lot of you feel like it's not the right time. And I've had a lot of conversations with you about next year or later on in the year, or I've had these topics coming from my survey at the end of last year where a lot of people said they couldn't really work out when they were supposed to, or they didn't feel like they were ready. One of the biggest indicators to tell you that it's the right time to start coaching is if you've been overthinking the decision to start coaching. Like, if you keep thinking about it and you're indecisive about it and you're going back and forth about it and you're considering it, that's a signal in your subconscious telling you, I need this support, I need this help, and it's going to benefit you. Going back and forth with it is actually a sign to say that you should be doing it. Because if you weren't going back and forth about it and you were like, no, not for me, that's to say you're not ready right now. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about, which is probably like, I even feel deflated, my voice, when I start talking about it because it's so deflating, is the clear the decks fallacy. And this, I've talked to you about it before, but it's basically thinking that there's some perfect time in the future when you're going to have more space to action and be present for coaching. And that time doesn't exist. Like, even if maybe you finish your exams and then you have more space after that, like, something else will fill that gap. And it's like a mini incubator for what's actually going to happen in your business, because nothing's going to pause in your business for when you feel like doing it. Like, it's always going to be happening. There's always going to be stuff going on. There's always going to be things going wrong. There's always going to be things that you have to do, or that you have to address, or that you didn't plan on having to do. And you're going to have to show up for it, and you're going to have to make time for it. And starting with business coaching like that is a really nice way to get used to that reality of running a business. The next little fallacy I want to talk about is sunk cost fallacy. If you don't know what it means, it basically means, well, I've been doing this thing for a certain amount of time and I've put a certain amount of energy into it, so I better keep doing it even though it's not working. And there's a few of you that I speak to in my DMs, and you complain to me about your current coach, and you tell me that your coach is giving you advice that hasn't worked. If we've ever talked about the back end of your business, I'm like, oh my God, how has your coach not told you to set up this foundational business? Like, this really foundational thing that all businesses need. And between you and I right now, I think that's because they're probably Instagram coaches rather than actual business strategists or business consultants like I am, because you've been working with them, or it feels comfortable, or you've spent money on it. If it's not working, please stop doing it. And it's probably time to try something new and something different. So, and whether that's with a coach or that's with your own efforts, maybe you've been putting a lot of effort into something and you feel like, well, I don't want to get a coach who's going to tell me to change that because I put so much effort into doing it this way. And the question that I'll ask you is, what has that done for you? What has that done for you? If it has worked, you don't need a coach. But if it's not worked, you do need a coach. And a simple question, if someone says like, but when should I start coaching? Like, when should I start thinking about it? What's the right time? The right time was last year. Like, the right time was the first moment that you thought about having a business. And the reason I'm saying that is not because you're doing it wrong. That's not what I mean. But if you have never built a business before, or you've never marketed yourself anywhere apart from Instagram, you just don't know where you need to be best directing your time and your energy. And it's really easy to get lost in that. And one thing that I really want people to feel and understand is, if you go, okay, well, in 12 months, I'm going to do coaching and I'm going to DIY it for 12 months. You've potentially cost yourself like 6 years and you've potentially cost yourself that $80,000 or that $100,000 that could have happened in the year between now and when we might start. Putting it off is going to cost a lot more time and money investment than the cost of coaching, both financially and energetically. And I want to remind you, non-strategic approaches to your business is going to have a negative impact on your self-worth long term. So if in you doing your own thing, it's not strategic and you're like trying stuff or throwing stuff at the wall, know that that will have a negative flow-on effect to how you feel about yourself. And we all know that if we don't feel good, we don't show up. And that has this really awful avalanche situation. So that's why it's so important for you to not put it off. And if you're feeling lost, or if you're feeling confused, or if you've been looking for a coach for a while, or that you need that external person who's going to be positive and supportive, but is going to tell you the truth and give you some guidance as to what decisions you need to be making, this is when you should be booking a call to talk to me about how I can support you in your business. Now, I will say as well, I have a whole other group of clients who are doing 50, 60K months. And I'm working with them not only on business systems to support the further growth of the business, but also to support their embodiment and the way that they show up energetically and their alignment with their business. So coaching is not for the very beginners. It's not for people who are struggling. It's also for people who are doing really well and want that support and that space. And I think the better you are doing in business, the more you realize how important that is, and the more you start prioritizing it, which is very funny. It's like a very funny dichotomy, because it's like you're doing crap in business and you don't think that coaching's worthwhile. As soon as you start doing well, you see how worthwhile it is. And you see how if you flipped those things, everything could be completely opposite. So these are all of my reasons and my own personal experience and what I think about the right time to start coaching. And for me as a coach, I'm usually booked out 5 months in advance. So one thing to know is that when you work with me, you do have a lot of preparation that you have to do. You have at least 4 books that you have to read, a lot of personal preparation, a lot of schedule preparation. And I've had some feedback in this cohort from 3 people who said that the preparation for coaching has been life and business changing and hugely sorting out their confidence for the better. Know that even the preparation is getting amazing feedback. We're not even talking about coaching yet. So if this has landed, please get in touch. Please jump on a free call. I would love to talk to you about where you're at in this timeline of your business journey. If you can't tell, getting to share this time with you is something that I find truly sacred. I know that you're busy, but if you've taken anything away from our time spent together today, could you extend the love and share this episode with a friend, your community, or on your socials? Tag me so that I can see it and I can share it too. Or when you have a spare moment, leave the podcast a review. These things cost you nothing and will mean so much to me. Let's get this resource into the hands of more women visionaries and help us collectively move towards our most aligned way of being and doing business together.